Hi, this is John from Chicago. Welcome to my channel. Tiny whoops are fun. There's no other word for them but fun, especially in the wintertime. If you're flying outside in a place that's cold, like Chicago, it's no fun being outside, but indoors is a lot of fun. These are the 12 tiny whoops that I'll be reviewing today. The bottom row of 6 are the 65 millimeter size. The 2 on the left up above are the 75 millimeter size. The 3 in the center are 85 millimeter, and the one on the right is a 95 millimeter size tiny whoop. Starting on the 65 millimeter size, most of your reviewers say the Mobula 6 is the model to get. It comes both in a 25,000 kV model and a 19,000 kV motor size model. This is your lightest of the group. Has a dry weight of about 20 grams, and it's been out for about a year. This next one is the BetaFPV Meteor 65. It's been out a month or two longer, I believe, and it's has a 22,000 kV motors, and it's about 3 grams heavier. And it also has a new type plug, battery plug that will take. It's rated for 9 amps versus 4.5 amps of all the other ones. When you get to these models that have high power demands, the bigger plugs come in handy. This next model here is a new model out. It's the Eachine AE65. It's been out about 3 months. It has all new parts in it. It's a remake, I think, of the Mobula 6. It's made by, I think, Happy Model for Eachine. And it has the newer motors in it, a newer camera. It has the Cadex Ant-like camera, which is a little clearer, but it does weigh a little bit more. It has a new flight control board, so it has new parts in it. The thing that most people don't like about it is the new plug. It again is rated for 9 amp power, but the batteries are a little difficult to plug in and disconnect, although it does get easier after you use them for about a week. I think they wear in and you get the hang of it. But then you got to buy all new batteries. This next one is the iFlight Alpha A65. It's been out, I think, 4 or 5 months. It has the advantage of having separate VTXs and radio receiver in it. This has the XM Plus. You could also get a Crossfire or some other things. The thing is, when they're not all put on the same board, it weighs more. So you're flying with about a 4.5 gram penalty with weight on this. The motors are good. They're the Zing by iFlight 0802 motors at 22,000 kV. So they put out a fair amount of power and have fairly long flight times. This next model here is the UAV UZ65. It's kind of unique, and I think it's a neat concept. They went with bigger propellers on the 65 millimeter. They curved the flight control board in so they could put 35 millimeter propellers instead of the 31 that all the other quads on this bottom row have. By doing that, it puts out more power and it uses less battery, so you get longer battery flights with more thrust. So I would think in the future you might see some other models that are made like this. What people don't care for is the motors are soldered on to save some weight instead of the plug-and-play motors, and there's a few other minor things that they would like to see done a little different, but a lot of people have said they liked it. This next one here is the Eachine US65 Pro. It's a 2S model, and it has a lot of power because it's 2S. It puts out 129 grams of thrust, a lot more than any of the other ones here. And so if you want to do aerobatics, or if you have a bigger course where a little heavier of a quad will not hurt, this might be your best or your fastest for racing. This upcoming racing season, we will see. Though I think it's don't like it because again, that's a new connector from Eachine, and you have to put 2 batteries on instead of 1, and the tray that holds the battery only works really for 1 battery. You got to rubber band the other battery to it, so it's not a good solution. Going up to this top row here, we have our 2 75mm quads. We have the BetaFPV digital from DJI. It's video is crystal clear. When you're flying, you'd see what's going on, although I don't think it's as critical in an indoor tiny whoop. I like it on the outdoors where you're going between tree branches, so you can see all the ghost branches and things like that. But it shows you that they can make a tiny whoop that'll work with the digital system. This weighs, I think, has a dry weight of about 55 grams, and I like it. This model here tends to break easy. I haven't broken anything because I've been easy on it. The 85mm version of it, for $10 more, you could add a bigger frame that's a lot tougher, that has a carbon plate on the bottom. This next one is the Tiny Hawk S. That's my earlier review of 12 quads. This older brother, the Tiny Hawk, was my #1 pick. This is a good quad. I enjoy it. They have a newer one out, the Tiny Hawk 2, that has a better camera, and it's adjustable tilt, but it's heavier. This is fast revolving sport, where there's two updates to this in the last year and a half. This next model is a UAV UZ85. This is a 2S model. It uses 1102 motors, 1102 size motors, and it's lighter than the one next to it, the BetaFPV 85 Pro 2, which is one of my favorites for flying outdoors. It has 1103 motors in it with a little bit more power, but both of these are fairly good. The UZ85 is a little lighter, so it works a little better indoors if you want a big quad indoors, tiny whoop. This next one is one of my bigger ones here, or the most powerful one. It runs 4S. It's the iFlight Alpha A85 with the turtle camera in it, and it puts out 490 grams of thrust. It's not a great indoor quad, but it does fly indoors, and it is pretty smooth, and I've enjoyed flying it. You also have the DJI version that just weighs a few grams more, which I also enjoy. And then the last one here was kind of an experiment. I used a BetaFPV 95 frame and put a 1105 motors on it from my Eachine 115, and it flies pretty good. I just wanted to see what the flight characteristics were before I put any DJI equipment camera system on it. Thrust test and a range test to see how far each one of these will go before they drop, and then I'll do a indoor and outdoor lap speed testing, and then I'll summarize everything in a spreadsheet and make my final recommendations. 64, 65, 69. Second battery for BetaFPV Meteor thrust test. 64. Second bump. 63. Okay. AE 65. 1S thrust test. Second try. 60. 62. iFlight A65 thrust test, #1. 62. There we go. I'm almost 60. Thrust test, US 65 Pro 2S. 91, 90, 92. Beta 75 digital 350 battery. Zero that out. 260. 270. Tiny Hawk S, 1S, Emax battery. 118. 119. 118. 125. RDQ 450 milliamp hour battery. 240. 230. iFlight A85 thrust test 4S battery. 360. 355. 358. Attached is a spreadsheet showing the thrust values for each of the models, sorted by power to weight ratio, which varied from 2.9 to 4.3. The BetaFPV 85 Pro had the highest power to weight ratio of 4.3, which is why it is so fun to fly outdoors. Most of the indoor models varied from 3 to 3.4. Now we are testing the 12 models in groups of 4. The 4 best are up front. The upper left-hand corner is the BetaFPV 75X, which is the DJI model, and it does great. It's really clear, no video breakup, and the XM Plus receiver makes it the full 300 plus meters. The one on the upper right is a US 65 Pro, and it also made it to the fence with an SPI receiver of 300 meters. The lower left is the AE65, and it ended up by the ball diamond fence, and it made 280 meters. It looked like that was a video failure. The SPI was still working at the end. And then we had the Mobulus 6, and it made 260 meters, and that was an SPI receiver failure, which is still pretty good at 260 meters. The next group of 4 are your iFlight A65, which made 250 meters. That has a XM Plus, and it had a video failure, which also it had 50 milliwatts VTX. The one on the upper right is a UZ85, which made 234 meters. It has SPI receiver. And then the lower left is the iFlight A85, and it should have made it all the way, but it had a XM Plus, and it has antenna problems, and it only made 260 meters. Then the lower right is the BetaFlight 95 frame, and it made 240 meters. That was my Eachine 115 that was running an SPI receiver. The next group of 4 are your lowest 4, and that's the Tiny Hawk, and it has an SPI receiver, and it made a range of 240 meters in the upper left. The upper right is the UZ65, and that made 230 meters, and again, that had a better, more powerful standalone VTX in it. Then the lower left is your BetaFlight Pro 85, and it had a range of 230 meters. And then the lowest one was your BetaFlight FPV Meteor 65 with a range of 215 meters, and it had an SPI receiver in it too. But all these ranges are over 200 meters, which is really ample for a tiny whoop. So I would say the SPI receivers work good. We are doing indoor speed runs. The 4 fastest go first. Those the US Pro 65 Pro at a 8-second time frame, which is good. The next one is on the upper right is a Mobula 6 with a 9-second per lap times. Then the AE 65 with 9-second laps, and then the US or UZ 65 with 9-second laps. For the second group of 4, we have the BetaFPV 75X, which is your DJI, and it did surprisingly well at 9.3 seconds per lap. The Tiny Hawk S had, in the upper right, had 10 seconds per lap. The iFlight 65, the lower left, had 11 seconds, and then the UZ 85 lower right had 11.3 seconds. So that was the middle group. And then the last group, we were missing 2 quads. The upper left is the BetaFPV 95, the largest, at 11.3 seconds. Then the iFlight 80 or A85, the heaviest, had a 12.7 second time. I was missing in this group the BetaFPV 85 Pro X. It had a bad ESC, and I ordered a new one, and it didn't come in. And then my Meteor 65, I couldn't find the video on that. So now we go to the outdoor speed testing. The first set of 4 quads are the fastest. They varied from 10.7 to 11 seconds per lap for 3 consecutive laps. The fastest, the US 65 Pro, which is a 2S model, is in the upper left at 10.7 seconds. The one on the upper right is the BetaFPV 95 frame with the 1105 motors from the Eachine 115, and that's at 10.7 seconds. The one on the lower left is the Mobula 6 at 11 seconds, and the iFlight A85 is 11 seconds on the lower right. The next set of 4 are the medium speed ones, and they are the AE65 at 11.3 seconds in the upper left, and then the UZ65, it's 11.7 seconds, the upper right, then the BetaFPV 85 Pro at 11.3 seconds on the lower left, and then the lower right is the BetaFPV 75X, which is your DJI model, at 12.7 seconds. The slowest 4 were the Tiny Hawk S on the upper left at 13 seconds. Then the upper right, we had the UZ85 at 13 seconds per lap. And then the lower left was the Meteor at 13.7 seconds per lap. And then the lower right is the iFlight A85 or A65 at 11.7 seconds per lap. The outdoor flying is really where I think it's at for determining your top speeds. I summarized all this data in a spreadsheet, which is shown here. It's also attached in the description. You could click on it and it'll come up, and you could see all the details that we just tested, plus some other categories that I've added to help make a recommendation. Everyone will be asking, what's the best Tiny Whoop to get? And that all depends on what you're looking for. Some of these, like the DJI, it's amazing that they could put this much technology into a tiny Whoop that weighs a dry weight of 55 grams. It has perfect video, and it also has real long range, and it works best probably as an explorer type quad, where if you want to go look at the park, fly around the park for some distance or around a couple homes, this would be probably the best for exploration. If you're looking for video like a Cinewhoop, maybe your best bet would be the iFlight A85 with the baby turtle high definition video. That one would compete with your larger Cinewhoops. Larger size. I like the BetaFPV 95 frame. I might do inverted motors on it and see about putting a naked GoPro on it. But for most of these, and then if you're looking for aerobatics outdoors, the US or the Beta FPV 85 Pro, it had the largest power to weight ratio, and I think that was the best outdoors for aerobatics with that high power to weight ratio. The rest of them, the other 7, the bottom row that you originally saw, plus the Tiny Hawk, is what I kind of put in a category, be similar to flying like Nick Byrne does on his channel, or if you're going to race or do practicing for a race, is what I enjoy doing down in the basement. These would be fast indoor quads. Now for my conclusion. I put the 7, which I call indoor racing quads, on this line, and I put them in the order that I'm recommending them. This is just my recommendation. Other reviewers have different recommendations, and please feel free to put your comments below on what you think the ranking of these 7 Tiny Whoops are. But for number 1, I kept it at the Mobula 6. I think it's a fantastic quad. It's been out a year. It's going to get updated in the next month or so, I understand. I've seen some of the rumors on it. But it's right now it's the lightest and the fastest. And so I kept it as number 1. For number 2, with this new connector, the BT2, I went with the AE65. It's all updated parts. The motors are a gram lighter. It has a little bit better camera, but it's a little heavier there. So I went with the AE65 as my number 2 pick. For my number 3 pick, I went with the US65 Pro, which is a 2S model. It's the fastest. It's the has the longest range, and it has the most thrust of any of these 7. But the thing is, you have to deal with a second battery because it's 2S, so I downgraded it to number 3 there. For my number 4 pick, I went with the UAV UZ65. I really like the idea of the bigger props, these 35 millimeter props versus the 31 millimeter. That larger disc loading helps. It gives it more efficiency and more power, and I would like to see refinements to it in the future. Unfortunately, it didn't have the range. It has a higher wattage VTX, but it didn't have the higher range, and it didn't really have higher speeds. It is a little heavier. Then for my 4th, I went with the Tiny Hawk S. That won my last review about a year and a half ago, or it was a Tiny Hawk, and this is the upgraded model, which is a great update. It's the S model. It has some long flight times. It's a great starter quad, and it is fairly fast. 2 years ago, people were winning a lot of races, and they still do with the Tiny Hawks. Then for my 6th pick, I went with the iFlight Alpha A65. It should be better, but it's a little heavy. It didn't have the range that I was hoping for. With the XM Plus is great range. That should be 500 meters, but the VTX, even with the higher wattage VTX, it didn't give us an increase in range for the video. So I ranked it number 6. And then for my 7th one, I put the Meteor 65. I have the newer version coming. I ordered it. It's just stuck in customs. When I get it in, I will test it out and I'll put it in the spreadsheet that's attached. But for right now, with the weight, and it has pretty good power demands on it, it drains the batteries pretty quick. It does have nice motors. It's a good quality build, but these others are, I think, superior right now. So that's what I have. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those below. Don't forget to rank them if you've flown these before. And thanks for coming to my channel and watching this video. Please hit the like button if you like this, and please subscribe if you're not a subscriber already. Again, thanks for watching. This is John from Chicago.